But all right, I think it is time to get started. So, hello everyone. Today is episode 9 of the Building Hour. It is, let's see, today is, oh no, is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday? It is Tuesday. I'm so bad at that. I always forget what day of the week it is. It's Tuesday, March 31st, 2026, and this is episode 9, like I just said. And so today we are going to be reviewing the Beast by Faded. It is a really sick solo duo bass. It's got a stability bunker, so a good old classic, and it looks really, really sweet. My duo's actually, or duo trio, I play with a trio, but uh, uh, Burvden or Brandon FPS, he's playing out of this base right now on a Monday Wipe server, so he's gonna get a live experience on it. But I'm really excited to check this base out. It seems really, really cool. I have not seen the inside because, keeping with the theme of this series, I try not to peek at the inside of the base too much. I very, very quickly skim a base to see if it's cool, and it would be good to, do an episode on, do a full review on. But outside of that, I try not to spoil too much because I just love checking it out. Something super, super cool about this base is, oh my goodness, it sounds like somebody is raiding in the background. This is, once again, this is not my typical build server. This is the Rust Room Build 2.0 by GJ. Actually, this was the base that we were supposed to kick this week of the Building Hour off, because I'm going to be streaming the Building Hour every single night this week because it is spring break. So, yes, I'm going to be streaming every night this week. It's great. Yeah, we were supposed to kick off the week with this base yesterday, but we had to go with the Carbonara by Crow instead because this server was under maintenance until 4 a.m. Moscow time, which I guess we have passed that now. Yesterday we had not. Yeah, it's a Russian server. But so far I'm very pleasantly happy with this. It shows the cost right here. So that's one of the first things I like to look at. It's 56,000 stone, 46k metal fragments, and high qual. I'm usually not too worried about high qual as long as it's less than 1,000, and both of these seem very, very reasonable. We can see a bit of the footprint right here. I do like to check out the footprint, so let's see. The footprint doesn't look symmetrical that square, so I'm wondering if it just didn't load in this footprint right here exactly. But we have a very nice 1x1, and yeah, we're gonna check the rest of it out very, very, very shortly. But yeah, so checking this out, it looks like we have two-sided symmetry. It looks like the majority of the base is upkept on the main tool cupboard, which means you're likely going to have a pretty high upkeep cost relative to the base size, but it also means that you can throw down the entire base without these externals at all. These are entirely optional externals, which is neat if you're trying to just quickly throw down a base and not worry too much about your wipe. Like, if you're just gonna play for a single day, having a single TC, it's a very nice feature to have. I want a gun to point at things. There. It's nice to be able to point with the gun and actually have a nice little cursor. So, yeah, or crosshair, that's what people call them. Yeah, so it looks like the majority of the base is upkept on just this one tool cupboard. I like these little module guys up at the front and back, some breach peaks. So looking out here, we have, I wonder if this is a disconnectable. So this looks non-disconnectable unless, is it one of these guys? Maybe. Do we do it like this? Aha! So this is a disconnectable external design, which is pretty sweet. And then you just replace it to reconnect this. And for those who are unfamiliar, A disconnectable external is just any design where you have some way to break the connection between the external and the main part of the base, so you no longer overlap building privilege to the rest of the base without destroying any tool cupboards. You want this in case somebody raids your main base and breaks your main tool cupboard, and you need to replace it. And so instead of sitting here shooting fire arrows and then doing it on both sides, hoping nobody runs by and then steals building privilege to your base, you can just disconnect those two modules by building out like I just did with some triangles and then attaching the roof. That disconnects the building privilege and it lets you replace your main tool cupboard. If you're wondering how this works, it's really cool. PZ Comics was explaining to me how the stability system is calculated in Rust, and one of the important things is that the shortest path to ground is always used to calculate the primary component of the stability system. So the underlying math that goes on behind it is a little complex, but basically the Rust engine calculates a graph, and in math terms, a graph is kind of like a network of things that are all connected. And so each building entity is an object in this graph, and each one of them is connected through the socket system. And what I mean by the socket system is like you have this triangle, and I'm placing a wall into those sockets, and I just placed a roof into that socket. If I place this triangle up here into these sockets, it affects. But so when you have things that are socketed into each other, they contribute to stability. This goes horizontally and from below. It doesn't contribute if you're above. Like if you add something on top, it doesn't add to stability below. But it calculates the shortest path to ground. And so what happens here is the stability for these is currently being determined upwards through this path like that. And so we've got 2 blocks between this, and then if we build back, you have to center it. So you want to mirror this, and then you want to make it so that you can build a square roof or a standard roof and socket into here. What happens when I socket into this, that right here, that is a shorter path of stability than that path right there. And so the way it's calculated, that will drop out. It's unclear how long we will still have that this stability type of disconnect, because the devs initially patched this out because they don't want the game to function this way. They wanted to improve their stability system. Oh my goodness. Whoever is raiding is really quite annoying. But anyhow, the devs said they don't want this to be the way the system works. However, they had to bring this back into the game because it was bugging out a bunch of other building things. And long story short, they added it back in temporarily while they find a permanent solution. So enjoy these disconnectables while they exist, because they are fantastic. This is just a nice and simple. They went with an airlock. I don't think an airlock is the best way to go. I would prefer to go with a garage door here. Because this is 7 rockets of raid protection right here with the metal. And if you don't have this garage door, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rocket raid. And so I would rather raiders disconnect this by breaking here, or just raid the entire module. I want to drive up the raid cost so that they're never convinced that it's worth it to spend the rockets and take my externals. Because as soon as raiders get your externals, they can take your workbench, which in current Rust is extremely important. It can take days to get to a tier 2 or tier 3 workbench. Like in the last wipe, I never got to a tier 3. Now, that was because almost nobody on the server was selling the tier 3 fragments, and we were something like 25 grids away from the nearest tier 3 monument. We hit tier 2 within a few hours, but we were just stuck. We couldn't get to tier 3. We had a fantastic wipe. We did a ton of raids. I'm really glad that propane tanks were added to the game or propane bombs, that's just a fantastic addition. Just having tier 2 stuff to raid with. But what was I going on about? Yeah, so you want to drive this cost up because you never want raiders to decide that it's a good investment to take your externals. And the difference between this garage door and not, that's 6 rockets. And so you're taking 10 rockets up to 16 rockets in cost to raid the externals. And that 60%, but I think that difference from 10 to 16 is enough that raiders might be discouraged from disconnecting your externals from the main part of the base. And so if you have any windows, embrasures, any like hidden loot behind those types of things, if you have roof bunkers, your workbenches, all of that can be taken. Your doors, furnaces, because if you get lucky, maybe a lot of your electrical infrastructure is left behind after a raid. Raiders just come in, take your loot, and leave. If you're lucky, a lot of that can be left behind, and then restarting isn't so bad, especially if you stashed some loot in bedrooms, enough to restart. I like to call it like a restart kit. I keep some building mats, basic fragments, any extra basement fragments, I like to hide those in bedrooms so that in case we get raided and lose our workbench, I can just craft a tier 2, because it's not so bad restarting from tier 2. And a few kits, and especially tools. It's really nice to just be able, you get raided, immediately go out and farm. I like to stash these things around the base. This is how I like to play Rust, since offline raids are inevitable. Many people are just like, oh, you know, who cares about what base you build? You're going to get offlined anyways and have to give up the wipe. I really like to play when I've decided to play. Like when I schedule a day and I'm going to play Rust, I want to be able to play Rust. I don't want it to matter whether I got offline raided or not. And so by spreading loot around your base and making sure that raiders don't grief your base or don't get building privilege, I think this is very important because it means you can restart pretty far into the progression. You just have to fill your boxes back up and maybe do some repairs, which really isn't so bad. Someone in the chat is mentioning that you could add some storage or a bag in here. I think it is always a good idea to drop like a little bag in a module like this, just as an additional spawn point. Now, I do prefer a different type of module that doesn't rely on tier 2, but I've talked to myself, how's the saying go? Talk myself hoarse? I don't know. I yap about it every single time, so I won't go into it today, but I do prefer a different external module because it doesn't require tier 2. But with that being said, let's move into the base, starting with the compound. So we've got an airlock. I like that this door swings inward. I always think airlock should swing inwards. Right here, a little entrance bedroom module. They're being very efficient, which I appreciate with how they have this set up. But I do think you should place a campfire in this airlock, because otherwise you will drive yourself crazy. Don't turn that on. We don't use this to cook food or cook our feet like Michael Scott. We walk in, or we use this to help us walk in up over onto the beds, because the way the way the system works is the height of the bed is considered too high, and normally you have to jump up onto it. But if you place something like a bag, you could also put a bag here. But the campfire is smaller and a little bit cheaper. You can just walk straight up on top. And that brings us right to the peaks into the compound, which I really like the coverage these get. These look back in onto the base, so if raiders are pushing in, and it kind of gets an angle out. So if raiders breach that outer wooden wall, which they likely are, it's a good angle for that. Coming in, I'll look at this side since I just destroyed that side. We just have a nice, simple, this is a very basic external module, but I think it is the perfect size for this type of base. I don't think it makes sense to add much more than that. Yeah, the chain link is the chain link. I was just trying to decide Do I like that they built this extra triangle and went with the chain link? And I think I like it a lot, because if a raider breaches in here, they could target right here with high velocity rockets and shoot that roof right there if this chain link isn't here. And when they do that, that'll break the turret with splash, and then they handle that problem without, you know, breaking the turret. Or sorry, they handle the problem easily. But with the chain link, they have to either spend rockets on the chain link, which it's not that hard to break, but it's annoying. And if you're in an online raid situation, it'll just force the raiders to waste a rocket or two dealing with it before dealing with that turret. So I like that. And it's just a little bit of stone. I think this is cool. Wait, my brain isn't understanding what this is. That looks like the standard metal barricade, but is that a different type of barricade? Huh. I wonder if it's like glitched or something. I didn't know they could be vertical like that. Although I think I remember in the video them being... It's placed at a 45. How do you place it at a 45? I'll have to figure... Oh. I'll have to figure out that at another time. Anyhow, so I like that Faded decided to leave this pretty open. Just as I get into learning more and more about like meta or modern compounds, I just don't think a full shield wall makes sense for most solos, especially in a base this size, because a shield wall will cost you like 10 to 30,000 stone, and if your base costs 50,000 stone, why are you making it 25% more expensive just to add a shield wall when you're a solo? Like, that's not the point of a snowball base. That's not the point of a solo base. The point is to just have a base with all the features you need, have enough offline protection, but not have a ridiculous compound. You just really don't need it. But coming in here, I love this. This is a very cool little module. It gives you some nice peaks, or nice breach peaks, and you can respawn right here. I think this is a good place for a turret, especially if when you log off you put glass into those windows, just to protect this bed. And during a raid you can pop these doors open, and it can act as a additional turret. Or, you know, you spawn here in a raid, since this isn't airlocked, you can open it, and if you get killed as you're pushing to get a body or kill a raider, the turret's covering you. And so I think as a solo, having this module with a turret right here overlooking this bed, this is awesome. I use this in the Faraday 2, or the Faraday Mini. I haven't decided which way I'm naming that yet, but I actually use this exact module, except I close this up right here because it ends up being part of the honeycombing. But this is a nice spot where you can toss grenades out of, and so I may consider opening this up. This is cool. It does make it so raiders can throw grenades back in towards you, so it's always a double-edged sword, leaving anything open. And I'm undecided whether I like that potential, especially if someone's camping right here and they hear you. Respawn. It looks like, do we have 2 entrances? Yes, we have 2 entrances. The base is symmetrical on both sides, so I will just enter from here. This is the side that is not an entrance, so we get a nice spot for a protected refinery. I do like that. I don't think it's always necessary when you have a compound, but it is always a nice to have, and so that's pretty neat. All right, this side is the actual entrance. Just once again, I would put campfires, or realistically, since this is a bedroom module, I would actually just put the full bags. And so I would I would give the best player in your group one of these beds and one on each side. So if you're playing as a solo, you get both of them. If you're a duo, each of you gets one of these. And then you give the other bags to the secondary members. And then if you're playing trio or quad out of this base, I think the space is a little tight for that. But if you do, that's who you would give those to. So coming in right here, we've got our entrance. Nice little computer station. Oh, drop boxes. I like these drop boxes. I feel like drop boxes just are not as common as they used to be in a lot of base designs, because you have that mobility that goes straight up. Like, a lot of people have a locker or a barrel, but most bases don't have much drop box space. And with industrial piping, with the drop boxes, you can just use the drop boxes basically for everything and have it auto sort all the loot throughout your base. And so that's a really cool option you have if you've got good drop boxes. And so I like this. I like having that. Let's see, is this armored? That is armored. And we've got an airlock. I wonder what this leads to. Okay, so that leads in. What does that armored door lead to? Okay, so this leads to another bed. That's going to be a tough jump regardless of what you do, because this bedroom module is really squeezed into there. I don't know if that would make it any easier at all. I'm just I'm just doing the same trick over and over today, but yeah, so this is not one you would want to jump into, but it is something that you could play out of. I don't mind that. I like this generally, especially in a solo base. It's nice to have a module that you can place down, I would assume, pretty early in the build, but I haven't actually watched the full build video. And so coming in, it looks like we've got like a pseudo open core space. We have another bedroom module on the back here, large battery, electric furnaces, a turret covering the drop down, which is sweet. And this is a turret that will be hard to deal with since it's so far back. As long as that garage door is open, and I would almost recommend leaving that open, or maybe having it on like maybe making some electric circuit where if the turret is destroyed, the door gets closed. That would be cool. But leaving that open, you can't actually shoot or splash this turret out. And so this is a good drop down covered by that. And it also does loosely cover just the entire open core. So I really like this core layout on the 1x1. It's cool. We've got the windowed style loot rooms. They're done as garage doors, which this is a totally fine way to do it. It feels more open, and I really kind of like that. Now, it won't provide you quite as secure of protection if people decide to raid through here in. And so, if you want to feel a little bit more secure, you can go with the classic windowed loot room. You can still access everything, especially if you reverse those facing the other way. The boxes are much easier to place and access. And the reason that this is slightly more secure is you can place you put the embrasure on the inside of the base, and then you go with a window, armored or regular. You can then put that on the far side. And so now raiders, if they're trying to come through this window, have to break first the window and then this embrasure to get through here. Whereas when you have the garage door, all they have to do, I mean, they still have to break this ramp. So actually, that doesn't really make that big of a difference because you have the ramp anyways. And so go with this garage door version because it's more open. The reason you would want to go with the windowed one is you just don't need to spend the gears. And so I like this. Lots of storage. Let's see. I wonder why. So this must be TC, since that seems to be pancaked. Ah, yes. This is TC. Got a vending machine bunker. I think the vending machine bunker is fixed. And the reason I say that is because I tested it out this morning, and I was actually able to place one. And so I was really, really excited to see that. I like this core. It's a good 1x1 layout. Now, what I think is really interesting is whenever I've been laying my 1x1s out in their core, I put the TC in this spot right here, so I get the additional honeycombing on the back. And let's see, how many layers? Oh, wow. So this is 1, 2... Wow, this gets 3 layers to the TC from right there. So that is really interesting. I really like this. I may try this out. We have a stability bunker right here. And so, place. Now your core is bunkered. I think this is, since this is a single TC footprint base, and I could see this just as, what I'm trying to say is that this stability bunker will be very useful early on into your wipe, especially if you don't hit tier 2 on your first night of sleep, if you will. And by that I mean like actually going to bed, like not just in Rust. But so basically, if you don't hit tier 2 in one day, this is just like a nice thing to have, because it means you're not going to get door path rated pretty cheaply. Because as we can see, it's not the longest door path. You know, 1, 2 sheet door, garage door. I personally wouldn't make this an airlock. I talk about it in the mobility episode of the Build Better Bases series, but the reason being is that we've already gotten airlock, and this airlock is controlling raider mobility into here or potential grubs. So this is already covering that. We then move up here. This is no longer significantly controlling the mobility of players in a scenario that will happen very often. In fact, there will be very few scenarios in which raiders will ever move through that spot right there, and especially because we have this stability bunker. Because we have that, we really don't need to worry about a door path rate, and so I wouldn't use this right here, because if you're playing more than just solo, now you're fighting to move through here, and even if you're playing solo, you've got to deal with this airlock every single time you're moving from this core to outside of your base, and that's going to happen a lot throughout a wipe, and so I would rather just 2 garage doors maintain good mobility through the base. And moving on up, we have another large battery, more beds, more barrels. It's so cool how you can fit 6 barrels into a single triangle as long as you leave that window off. More turrets. This base has so many beds in it. Just beds all the place over. I think it's really cool how many they fit in. It's probably more than you'll ever need, because we've got one module, a second module out there, we've got these central ones, you've got another one up here, you have the gatehouse modules, you have those like hexagon, like what's it called? Bunker. You've got, or not bunkers, the thing that you shoot machine guns out of in, like, World War II, where it's, like, I don't know, the fortification. But anyhow, you've got those at the front and back of the base, and so we haven't even gotten to the shooting floor yet, and there's 8 different bedroom locations, and so if you're playing out of this, I would just use some of those as bedroom spots. I probably wouldn't use all of them. We have another airlock. I don't mind this one. I think this one is okay, because it does serve a purpose, because it is protecting our mobility, or sorry, our shooting floor. And so the reason I generally like that is because the shooting floor is a prime target for a larger group to hit, especially because it's not too expensive to get access to it. Raiders just need to break this one sheet door, and then deal with the traps down here. But they can do that by just splashing some rockets down if they're really worried, or if they just want to handle it nice and easy, toss a bunch of grenades, something like that. So it's not that hard to get control of this shooting floor. And so I think it is a good investment to have an airlock protecting the mobility. I think that is well worth it in this scenario. We only have one entrance onto the shooting floor, but with a shooting floor this compact, there's not much... let me just fix that real quick. There's not too much you can, you know... You can't have everything. You can't have a base this affordable and also have a giant shooting floor. This is cool. These look like turret pods that you can open up. I wonder if there is a switch, or maybe those are HBHF sensors. But I think this is cool, and it simultaneously provides another peak that you can shoot out of. Now, I personally would just put the garage doors facing, instead of outwards like that, I would face these inwards like that. With the reason being, I can now access these from the inside. Okay, so the garage door should be facing in. Yeah, I really like this because it doubles as a way to surprise raiders with a what am I trying to say? An auto turret, but then also you can use the peak to either throw grenades or shoot out of. So I like that. I like that a lot. And you can make it even... no, I think you just leave these double doors open for the mobility. This is nice. It's like a pseudo wide gap. You don't quite get the peak down potential, and it is a little risky to play from these because if you die, your body's going to fall out into the compound. So I don't... Like, these aren't amazing. However... I guess what would you do instead? I guess you could set up double Patrico angles, and that may be better than this, but you don't get the tight angle. Because from here you get that, but you don't quite cover that way. So you need some way to look down, but I don't love that your body, every time you peek this, will fall out. So basically, if you peek this, don't mess up. Otherwise, just toss grenades down. And there's no fob protection on these. And let's see, could there be? Oh yeah, there absolutely could be. I think if you're building this, you absolutely just add this in. You either build it like that, or if you want to save on cost, oh yeah, like that. This is probably a better way to do it, and then you can either add the roof like that. Can't put that, so okay, I would just go with low walls like that. And so this is, I would just consider adding this just as like a given. I think this should have been in the design right here. And this is just really simple to add. We're protecting that peak from raiders. Because if I've built a nice big forward operating base or raid base, now I can't just hold the angle. Because like when they're exposed, if I come over to this side, up here, I can just, anytime you enter this part of your shooting floor, I can just hold you. I can hold you. This center one is much harder to get an angle just because there's a lot less space, so I'm not super worried about the front. You totally could add it if you want, but yeah, you should be adding this, and you don't have to upgrade it to stone. If you're really worried about cost, you can just make that wood, but I think it is absolutely, absolutely worth the little bit of stone that this is. You know, it's like less than a node, maybe a node for each one of these, and there's only 4 that you have to add 2 on each side. I don't think it's necessary on these ones. You have that roof protecting above you, and I think these are kind of intended as a way to fight back against those, or to push up and get a little bit closer. So I like leaving these as they are. Let's see. Peaks. So these also could be fob protected. It's really not that hard to add. And so I feel like... I don't know why I have stability on the one side but not the other, but if you can't get the... I like to use these triangle roofs because they're a little bit cheaper. But that totally works too, like this. And so that's so cheap to add. And I think it makes the peak so much stronger because now you're not getting blasted as much by raid bases. Especially if you... instead of a, what's it called, a frame like that, if you had the floor. But, so yeah, I think you should just protect these peaks, but, you know, that to each their own. Faded decided not to, probably to preserve cost or to keep the profile of the base less aggressive. But I do love just how this base looks from the outside with all the, like, sloped angles back in. It looks really cool. Yeah, these are neat. Especially because you don't really need the extra honeycombing right there, but you do want the... Like, you want this peak anyways, and it, you know... And you want the honeycombing on the lower level. Because in any 1x1 core base, you really want to get to three walls to TC if possible. Because like, the whole point of a 1x1 is to get that central core unit, or at least that's the biggest strength of a 1x1, sorry, is just to make it's so easy to get 3 walls to that starting core unit. And that's the entire base. I like this one. I think it's funny how many beds and bags were spammed into this. I really don't think you need that many. I love how small and tight this is. This truly is a solos base. And I think this is one, as a solo or duo, you can live very comfortably out of, get down very quickly. There's a lot of really interesting features to it. Something that I wish it had is I wish it had any form of bunker. Other than, and sorry, there is a stability bunker in the core, but practically speaking, almost nobody raids through door path once your full base is complete. Almost anyone's going to pummel from the side. It's possible that they take a targeted approach. Like, I could see somebody raiding through this door, and then, or from the other side, if they identify which side by looking in through the windows goes into there. So, like, if this is me and I'm trying to eco raid, I'm coming through this door, I'm coming through here, and then I'm making my way down like this. So you could see that path, and in that case, the stability bunker does help out. But the stability bunker doesn't actually make that big of a difference in terms of overall raid cost once the full thing is built. And so what I would like to see is some sort of like roof bunker or any sort of bunker that's split away from the main loot. Because in this base, all of the main loot is concentrated into the center. And so in a pummel raid, the raiders can get just about everything for like 40 rockets. And I'm rounding up a little bit. Realistically, it's more like 25 to start opening up, 15 to 20 to start opening up that open core, really 25 to 30 to start getting a lot of it, and then to get like a full raid of the core, that main TC and all of it, like the range of like 40, 42 rockets, somewhere in there is what I would guess. I could spam rockets and see how many, but I would give this base around 40 rockets. And if all that was added was 2 bunkers that are split away, like if he was able to fit bunkers somewhere around here in the shooting floor, maybe shift this up a little bit, this breach peak, and put it up onto the, kind of like this, just shift it up. If he was able to add roof bunkers in, that adds just additional rockets for both of those. And so maybe 8 or realistically 12 rockets for each bunker. And raiders are most likely just going to take that central core and your main loot. And so those bunkers, you'll wake up with loot to keep playing from. And so, yeah, I guess the one thing this base for me is missing is bunkers. And I guess the benefit and downside of this base at the same time with the externals is the external really just isn't much of a thing. And what I mean by that is we've got, what, 56 blocks upkept on the external. I really wish some more of this base was connected to this external rather than most of this on the main TC. This makes it a lot better for online raids, but and it also makes it easier. Like, if you don't want to build these externals, if you just want to build your one TC, play a single day, log off, go to bed, and don't care what happens overnight, this is fantastic. But if you're trying to play for a couple days, I generally would want more of the external more of the base on each external, because it reduces your upkeep cost, and it allows things for bunkers, like I was talking about. And so I love this base. I'm waiting for this fellow to chill out. That's the one downside of the server, is you can hear everything going on. But yeah, so I will definitely be building this base at some point, particularly if I just want to play a Monday wipe or maybe a rocket base solo. I really like this. And there are some things in this base that I think I want to try and incorporate. I love the 1x1. The 1x1 is my favorite footprint right now. I've got like 3 or 4 base designs I'm working on that are all based on the 1x1. And so, yeah, this is cool. One thing, the other thing, I get why Faded went with this in the shooting floor, but I would want something else, because I just don't like that my body would fall out into the compound, especially because there's no shield wall, and there's only these 2 turrets, and so a raider would just have to shoot out that 1 turret, and now whatever body I lose. And if I'm in my shooting floor, I'm using my best kit. I've got my AK or my M2 kit, and so this is a great way to lose your M2. And so you just have to be very careful of that. And then I would add these protected, those protections for these the Patrico peaks. And so I guess someone in the chat is asking for an overall rating of this base, and I tried this all the way back in episode 2, I think, or maybe episode 3, and then I kind of went away from it because it's so hard to give like a proper rating for a base. But I can try it again for, maybe a few episodes and see how much people either agree or disagree with them, and if everyone really doesn't like them, I can just stop doing them again. But I rate this base very highly. If I had to go on like a letter scale, I would put it somewhere around an A, as in it does everything very solidly. It's clearly very well designed. There's not wasted space. It's got all the features you're looking for, and it does everything really well. But there are still some, I guess, mistakes. I'll consider not protecting these mistakes, because I didn't have to change anything about the base. All I had to do was add those. And so I think it's just, there is no scenario in which you shouldn't add those, but they're really simple, and so I don't think it's that big of a deal. In general, most of these peaks aren't that protected. I don't know if that's just a preference of Faded or not. I don't know if he plays a lot of online raid defenses or not, and maybe he doesn't find that he needs those protected angles, or he likes to shoot out the M2 raiders with, maybe he gets L9 and likes to shoot them back. I don't know, but someone's asking what's an A for us non-USA people. like the scale is F for a failing base. I'll never review a failing base from a builder. Maybe even like a D, I won't realistically ever feature on this channel unless I'm doing like viewer base reviews. Those are not ones I'll ever select from YouTube. I just kind of throw those out of the way. Those would be ones that have just major flaws, like their TC is a single wall, or like doesn't have a shooting floor, things like that, like majorly flawed bases. And then C's would just be like poorly designed bases, but technically most of the stuff is correct. Like your base can function. I think the Nother, my own design, I think my second or third base build, I think that's a C. I think it's poor. It doesn't have any great features, doesn't have bunkers. It's not extremely efficient in layout or design. It doesn't have great peaks. But there's nothing technically awful about the base. A B would be a base that's cool. I think the base we're going to look at tomorrow, it's The Guardian by Mimosh. I think that's going to be a B. That's a base that, to me, it's got some good features, some bad features, and just overall, it's an okay base. For variety, you might want to build these, but you really want to get them to an A before I'd consider playing them. Any base that I would consider playing, or like I see it and I'm like, ooh, I want to build that, that's at least an A. And I think the difference between an A and an S tier, so an S tier is usually just 1 over A. In letter grades, you don't usually have S, but in video games, we always have an S tier, so I'll have an S tier in my system. S tier is where it's like you come up with something just fantastic, like somebody I've never seen it before, or you just do everything just ridiculously as efficient as possible, and there's no glaring weaknesses or changes made to your base. In general, I think this base could have been, if there were any sort of bunker, if any one of these three were true, I think this base would be an S immediately, but because all three of them aren't true, it's an A. It's if there is bunkers. If there are bunkers, immediately S, no question. If more of the base was upkept on the externals. Now, because this base is designed to be played either as 1TC or multi-TC, I probably wouldn't want to change that one. I think the base makes the most sense as it is right now in terms of upkeep and the split between the multi-TC and the main TC. And then the third one is a lot of the peaks aren't super protected, and especially this downward angle, we're just lacking a really good way to deal with the downwards angles. And so if bunkers are more of a way to deal with downwards on the side and just overall more protection for your head in the peaks, if either of those were included on this base, I think this would be an S. So this is a very strong A. I will definitely play out of this, and the people I play with are actually building this base in their current Monday wipe. I don't usually play the Monday wipes with them. I try to work on the YouTube and stream on these days instead of playing. And so, yeah. So I really like this base. This is a very, very cool base, and I would highly recommend it. I'm going to put the link in the description and probably and also the build code. The build code is TGE capital V 8 capital W on the Rust Room build 2.0 by GJ. But the code is capital sensitive or case sensitive, so I would just copy paste it if I were you. But yeah, that's all I have on this base for today. This is a little bit longer of a review, especially for such a small base, but I really enjoyed reviewing this base. And so if anyone has any questions or things that maybe they want me to take a deeper look at or talk more about, please ask them in the comments. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.